Hi everyone. Today I want to continue on with some discussions of recent Blu-ray releases for February 2023. Now my last several videos have discussed high-profile titles, but I don't want to forget my mission statement. My mission statement is to cover films that are forgotten, underrated, overlooked. And so the film I'm going to talk about today meets the bill of that criteria. This is Let's Hope It's a Girl, a film from 1986. And this is a film that meets not only that criteria, but it also could meet the criteria of unknown, because this is a film that never was released in the US. It's a French-Italian co-production, so it was released in France and Italy. But there, on IMDb, there isn't much, there's no release date for the US. I don't think they had any English language version available that was distributed. And that's a real puzzlement because this film won 7 David Donatello Awards in Italy. So it was a very successful film. I think those awards are prestigious, or at least something comparable to the Oscars and for Italian films. So it won 7 of them, including Best Film, and it's about 110 minutes, I think, and it's a very entertaining film. So it was critically approved. I think it's an audience type movie, very entertaining, but also it has a great cast. So we have a cast and a great international cast. You might be able to identify Catherine Deneuve and Liv Ullman and Bernard Blier. Philippe Noiret is also in this film, not on the cover here. And it's a great ensemble cast. And Mario Monicelli, the director, who made 2 fairly famous films. One very famous, Big Deal on Madonna Street in the late 50s, and then also The Organizer in 1963. Both had Marcello Mastroianni in it as part of that ensemble cast. And they are both in the Criterion Collection, and they are, I think both are streaming still on the Criterion channel. But that's it for Monicelli. I have seen his segment of an anthology movie, also from the 60s, but that's it. And from the titles that I looked at, none of them seemed very familiar to me. And by 1986, the audience going to the movies for foreign films had dwindled away. VHS killed the repertory theaters outside of a few in the big cities, and the audience for foreign films had just, there really wasn't much compared to the 50s, 60s, and 70s, to be sure. So it is an ensemble cast, and the story concerns an aristocratic family, a count and a countess, played by Philippe Noiret and Liv Ullman. And the count is sort of ne'er-do-well. He's sort of been dissipating the family fortune. He's always involved in some schemes. Their marriage, they're estranged. The count lives in Rome, the big city full of excitement. The countess lives on his family's estate, and she's really struggling to keep it going. She has to be a hand-on owner, so she's out in the fields with the farmers and trying to keep everything going. The count comes to visit, and he's got another scheme, and this is going to be a real financial drain on the estate, but the riches that will come will be immense. He wants to build a resort, kind of a spa-type resort. There's natural springs on the land, and he just can't understand that there's no money to do this, that he's dissipated the money. There's mortgages on the land. So the countess has to say no. Now, she is presiding over an extended family of women. So she has 2 daughters of school age. She has the maid, who is proverbially this type of maid that's part of the family. She has a daughter. And then there is the countess's sister, played by Catherine Deneuve. Her young daughter also is living on the estate with them. Now, the countess's sister, played by Catherine Deneuve, is a big television actress. She's very famous. The family gathers around the television with a sense of wonder and admiration and pride in watching her on her television shows. So there is a very close-knit, this is a very close-knit group. And there's only one male around, and that's Uncle Gugo, played by Bernard Blier, very comically. His mental faculties are starting to dwindle, but he is well loved by everybody. Very endearing character. Supplies a good bit of the comedy in this film, and it is a very gentle comedy. This is Monicelli came out of the tradition of the comedy dell'arte, I think is pronounced. And his comedies aren't like joke comedies, but they're comedies that come out of the comedy of manners, comedy of human behavior. And we also get very much a contrast between rural life and city life. So in the rural life, you can have authentic relationships. You can have close bondings. People care about each other. Like I say, the maid becomes part of the family. Even the people working the farm, they have great respect for the countess, and the countess has great respect for their work. And this is contrasted with the city, where Catherine Deneuve lives in a really nice apartment, but it's seen as sort of antiseptic. It's seen as sort of shallow, where people don't form authentic bonds. They're part of the great capitalist boom that hit Italy, and the idea is to be successful, and relationships that seem to be good, you can't trust relationships. So now there is everything sort of falls apart, and very suddenly. So that is the dilemma of the film, what to do. Do we separate? Do we go out? And then we're not, you lose the authenticity in the film. The screenplay sort of intimates that you lose a sense of self once you go out into the big world, that a sense of self that is much more satisfying in this kind of rural environment. So the performances are great. As I say, this is a close-knit family. You really feel it in the set design of the interiors and the exteriors. You sort of want to be there. You sort of want to pay a visit. The director, Mario Monicelli, he was a long time. I mean, his filmmaking goes back to the 20s, so he probably was in his stride in the 50s and 60s, but obviously had a big hit here in the 80s. He went on to make films into the early 2000s, and in fact, he had a credit for 2010 when he was 95 years old. And he is Monicelli is one of a great number of Italian directors that in the 50s, 60s, 70s were eclipsed by the reputation of Federico Fellini and Michelangelo Antonioni, who were the global sort of emblems of Italian cinema. But there was so much going on underneath. And fortunately, we're getting a lot of Elio Petri, Francesco Rossi, Dino Risi, Antonio Pietrangeli. The Italian cinema during that time was an absolute treasure trove, and it might have been, it might have gone on through the 80s and 90s, but we don't really get a sense of that because the distribution was so just wasn't there anymore. And Monicelli, like I say, he has sort of a strange, macabre ending in that ending to his life, because at 95 he was diagnosed with cancer. He was in the hospital, and he jumped out of his hospital window to his death in 2010. So there's no supplements on this film, and this is a rare video distributed through Kino. And at least Kino usually gives you a commentary, but this is a movie that needs context, and I would have loved to see an interview with Catherine Deneuve or Lee Ullman or the younger actresses who must have had a great time working with two, humongous international movie stars, and just Monicelli's career. Could have had some great supplements. So hopefully we get some more of his movies with a little bit more context, because that was really that's the big disappointment of this film, of this release. Now it is playing on Amazon Prime. You can rent it. I think it's the only place I found where it was streaming for like 99 cents. Now there's no restoration here on this Blu-ray, so it's not a it's not something you need to go out and buy. I mean, it's definitely not one of the greatest films, but it's certainly worth 99 cents to check this film out. And the title, Let's Hope It's a Girl, of course, playing on the comments that most prospective parents are going to have. Let's hope it's a boy, because for centuries that was what was desired most. Females had very little opportunity, marriage, and hopefully they make a good marriage. By 1986, of course, this was clearly evolving, where women did have a sense of agency, and a sense that opportunities were opening up, despite lingering inequalities from the patriarchal nature of capitalism of the late 20th century. So I think nowadays people would probably be more inclined to say let's hope it's a girl rather than let's hope it's a boy. At least it's probably 50-50. I know from my own experience, now that I'm in my old age, in my own observations, that when you get older, it's probably good to have a daughter. Daughters tend to look after their elderly parents, or at least a little bit more reliable than their sons. Of course, that's a generalization. It might even be a misperception. But a very good film, very entertaining film. Like I say, let's hope we get more Monicelli. Next up will be another unknown, forgotten movie from Jacques Rivette, and this is from Cohen Media. And they've been releasing one Jacques Rivette film per month, and I think there's 2 or 3 more yet to come. This is from, I think, 1983 with Geraldine Chaplin and Jane Birkin. Okay, thanks a lot for everybody who managed to listen. I do appreciate it. Comments are welcome. Take care.